Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending where you are. Welcome to another episode of An Evening With. Today I have the utmost pleasure to welcome for our event, Alberto Brandolini.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Zio, thanks for being with us. With us virtually, as we say. Today's topic, as you can see from all the branding, all the banners, is going to be remote event storming. Since 1 year, we found ourselves in this situation. So today's talk is redesigning everything, lessons learned from collaborative modeling. Before I leave the stage to Alberto, let me remind you that you can ask questions during this talk through the YouTube chat that you find just below the video. You can do that while you still watch the video. It's amazing to see a lot of action in the chat. Hello, everyone. It's very cool to see you here. So without further blah blah from my side, over to Alberto.
Hello, hi everybody, and let's get into action. And so the whole idea is about basically everything that happened in the last year, all the forced redesigning of everything that was related to EventStorming and a lot of other things. But let's see the journey. The beginning picture, it really looks like a journey. Quick recap, because it's part of the starting point. It's just like, talking about me. Well, that's a slide that I used quite a few times, coding since 1992. Still doing this. Background in domain-driven design, agile, lean, and complexity. I invented EventStorming. I'm a bullshit sommelier, and I run Avanscoperta. So it's a little bit of technical stuff, entrepreneurship stuff, and a few other things along the way. The way the whole story started is actually now 8 years ago. This was the original article, Introducing EventStorming. And then 2015, I started writing the book, and I'm still doing this, and then a few things happened along the way. But the original idea, the seminal idea of EventStorming was actually this one. Put all the key people in the same room and start designing, sketching the entire business story of everything that happens in terms of events. So this what EventStorming used to be. A lot of people, a lot of orange stickers, a lot of parallel conversation, and many things happening at the same time. Three main formats, the big picture, what we could use for many things: corporate retrospective, organization reboot, big architecture redesign, project kickoff, designing startups, basically everything that involved misunderstanding at the enterprise scale, while visualizing was really helping. Process modeling was a little bit more narrow focused for the specific business process, for new processes and services, for discovering the real motivation between action, designing new, exploring the existing ones, the contradiction. Do we already have this recipe? And then at the bottom line, but not the least important, actually, that it's the one that is used more around the planet. The part of software design, which is basically closing the gap to the software. We started talking about business events, and then, we will see, like, given a format, we can get as close as possible to the implementation and discovering what is missing, contradictions along the way. And this is me, a younger version of me with a different beard and less gray hair, just having fun putting stickers on a wall during the workshop. And I had pretty strong opinion about the problem. This tweet is in the air. And yes, what is the best thing for remote EventStorming? A plane ticket. That was me, 2018. And then 2020, just 1 year ago, I don't have to remind you, the bastard appeared here. And then ideas that were so simple and efficient, like put all the key people in the same room, now it's actually forbidden, or we have to do it mask, or we need a very, very large room, and we really have some hard time finding rooms large enough for EventStorming. Now we should go in stadiums to make it work. And so even these people in the same room, that's not possible anymore. And even my tweet now looks like a pretty dumb idea. Like if you change the date, if you don't look at the date, like who could be so dumb to tell, well, EventStorming, just buy a plane ticket. It's still viable though, and it's probably still the most efficient way, even including the quarantine. You just go to places like New Zealand, maybe Antarctica, where you can have it without the social distancing. You spend the time in the quarantine, and then you could have the real one. But no company is going to pay for that. But this was about EventStorming. But business-wise, Avanscoperta, our company, was still having the story. And at the same time, March 1 year ago, we had a business in public trainings, which stopped. We had a business in private trainings, which stopped too. We were doing workshop, consulting, visiting companies for, EventStorming workshop, and this business was stopped. We were organizing events like, well, not only meetups, we're planning conferences and so on, and this was stopped. And luckily, I spread my bets as a great entrepreneur. We had also a software development project, which happened to be in one of the industries that were more heavily attacked by the COVID. So that's a summary. So all we got 1 year ago was free time. We basically had nothing to do than reinvent ourselves. Yes, we had a mission. That's great. And also we had time to experiment. And as weird as it might sound, we actually enjoyed the time. I felt like I was getting back to the early days of freelancing. Well, to be completely honest, my early days of freelancing, since I didn't plan to go freelancing, was actually the early days of unemployment. But I had a lot of time to do all of the things that I thought were right and nobody ever told me to do. Okay, I love that moment because it led me to good intuition, different practices. So well, let's do it. And also we've been preaching for a long time about antifragility and dealing with complexity, coping with the evolution. So what do we do when something like the pandemic happens? Well, we just reinvent ourselves and prove to ourselves first, and maybe to the world, that we are actually anti-fragile and that we could be better or grow in this hard situation. Of course, we could not anticipate this. It would be completely dumb to start thinking about a different business model before the pandemic. It's just like the turkey planning to escape from the Thanksgiving Day. Doesn't work. But once you see the situation, well, you got to do something about it. So you got to change, you got to evolve. One of the first things that happened, one of the first things that I wrote at that time, actually one of the first ideas at the time, well, you just close yourself at home and start finishing the book. And then it turns out the whole book is no longer valid if you get into a world with a pandemic, because it just like start with pulled all the people in the same room. So I started writing, and I wrote basically two things to summarize what was the situation in the early days. So I wrote these two articles. I could not write a single one, and I wrote this one that was basically the half-empty glass, like EventStorming in COVID times, and one in the half full, saying like, yes, but that's a situation, and then, well, this is what we can do instead. And as you can see, my brain was torn apart at that time. Maybe a few people remember that movie and that specific scene, but that's not the point. But I had to publish something. I had to write down something. Still, my brain was still split. So no strong opinion, but that was 1 year ago, and a lot of things happened in the meanwhile. Oh, another great thing that happened in the meanwhile, hey, that was a fantastic new blog layout. So let's be more specific in here. I had 3 recipes. So what happened to big picture? And the big picture, that it was this one, very large, lot of paper, lots of statistics, lot of people. And what the thing that happened in this workshop were basically driven by this principle: invite the right people, business, IT, UX, provide unlimited modeling space, surface, markers, stickies, oxygen, and so on, and molded the entire business line with domain events on the timeline. A lot of people were still like, oh, this would never work, and this hasn't changed. Still, you could do it, and many times you even should do it, because a company that doesn't understand itself end-to-end is actually more prone to failure. But this is a little recap of what you can see in a workshop like this: events as building blocks, hotspots, systems, whatever we interact with, boundaries between things, people doing things, ideas to improve the systems and problems, and then we vote on what to change first. This was still relevant. We just needed new ways to make it happen. But we tried doing this, and we discovered clearly that a few things were missing. Some were obvious, like we needed, and we badly needed, multiple parallel conversation, and parallel conversation are not happening on Zoom. Also, just because they cannot happen on Zoom, there's a little situation of continuous shyness. Only one person is talking at the same time, and people are putting themselves on mute not to interrupt. And then we're missing a lot of clues in this way. There's only one conversation possible, and this is slowing things down a lot. One of the other things that was a little shock is we were using low friction tools like stickies and markers. So whenever we run a workshop with Miro or Mural instead, we just need to spend 20 minutes basically practicing with Miro and the other tools, because there's always somebody which is new to the tools, but still they need to join the discussion. So all we expect them to be just spectators. But have you been a spectator of Miro board for more than 10 minutes without getting bored? No, you should be engaged in some way. And in order to be engaged, you need to be participating. But turns out you don't need to practice with stickies and markers, but you need to practice a little with Miro and so on. There's another implicit thing about proximity, being in the same room, which is the feeling of high commitment and focus. What do I mean? I mean that especially in the afternoon, people are starting to look around, and there's the implicit promise of, we got to finish this by the end of the day. So we start accelerating a little. We automatically cut off some discussion which are really long, and we just deliver because we want to deliver. There's this implicit promise that we put 30 people in the same room, we will deliver. Otherwise, everybody's going to look like an idiot. But this magic is not happening online. Not at all. I mean, we split the whole day into 2 half days, but there's 2 half days, come on, it's just like ending because it's lunchtime, not because we have finished. There is no way to rush. There is no way to accelerate. One single person can slow everything down, and they won't catch the embarrassed look of the other people. So this magic of we will finish by the end of the day simply doesn't happen. Also, we have been losing a lot of team building side effects. The moment of strong emotions, the moment of enlightenment. This is not happening online. It's just like, I never saw it happen. I tried for 1 year. It's not happening. We have decent days. We don't have fantastic days. The emergent time management is just like part of the commitment part. I call it the escape room effect. Since we need to finish by 6 o'clock, we make everything possible so we finish. And the other thing that I'm missing a lot is what I call the third time approach, rugby style, which means like, okay, the workshop is over, but somebody's inviting me out to have a beer, and with the beer comes the conversation. And with the conversation, I understand a lot more that happens inside the room. If you do it online with Zoom, you're missing this. There is no way to have an extra beer with the confidence at the end. People are so fucked up with Zoom that I just want to go home. I just want to switch it off, and we are losing the tail of this conversation. And, well, I still haven't found a good way to recover it. And other things that we discovered along the way is, yes, there's only a single, often annoying conversation. And as a facilitator, it's something I still missing the right way to stop people from being really annoying. In a workshop, it takes nothing. You just like use your body language, you step in the way, just say something. Sometimes people start talking that don't look at you. Maybe they don't even see you, and you can start waving around. Can you please stop? It's not happening. And the technological stack, all the extra friction of people with a cracking voice and all the other things that could happen, is a place of continuous interruptions. And if you consider this, a lot of what was the magic of EventStorming big picture was removing all the friction, was designing the workshop experience, including all the possible micro-laziness, little reason why things were not happening. And the moment you go on a virtual thing, all of this idea of micro-laziness is wiped away, because every single action has more impediments than enabler. You need to unmute your microphone before speaking. You need to make sure you're visible. You need to control 3-4 screens. People give up on many ways to give feedback. It's just like it's in the middle. It's not there yet, and hasn't improved that much during this year. A lot of people became better with the tool stack, but consider this micro laziness. People are not doing important things because of the little frictions along the way, and these frictions are there, so things are not happening. Yep. And then this gotta go approach, which is the final one for me, is this is how the workshop are finishing. Like, because most of the people are from home, and well, it's lunchtime. I gotta prepare food. I have kids, and I gotta go. Well, yes, but then everybody go and walk away. Most annoyingly, what could be delivered in one day with the magic effect now takes 3 half days or more. And that was kind of depressing, because big picture for me was the most valuable and enjoyable workshop, because it just like drills into an organization identity and goals and mission, and tries to find a way to visualize the way to make them possible. And when it works, it's just amazing. But now all this magic has been, taken away. And but the problem still stands. How can I, make sure I have the whole flow under control? So I checked for the possible alternatives. And that turns out we have not so much. So it's if you want to visualize your company flow end to end, you still need something like EventStorming online. It's not as funny as in the present version, but you can do it. So we decided not to drop it. We decided to, okay, let's try. Let's see what we can do along the way, because we had no other choice. So we started experimenting. We started experimenting on ourselves, and we were quite familiar with some tools, but not everybody was. The bad story was we have no digital backup of our old processes. We remember them very well, but when we had to start, and we needed to write down something. And we had a few experiments along the way. And so, yes, we had some good discussion. We discovered things, we made things possible. We never finished an end-to-end process because it simply was taking too much time. We always bumped into some lunchtime or, whatever. Very hard to finish. Another thing is we badly needed a new tech stack. This is kind of weird because this is exactly the place where I'm talking from. So I see this in the picture, and I see this just like really, really weird. I mean, I don't have the iPad here. I have maybe different stickies, but forget the fact that I can be really, really messy even in a small standing desk. But one of the things is we invested a lot in terms of wanted a second screen. I needed a microphone. I needed a high resolution camera. I need to be able to go multi-surface, and I also have flip chart nearby. And it's some money, but that is not the thing. It's just like one thing, they all make a difference, even if the most important tool that makes a huge difference is the standing desk. Standing is just making making people smarter, and it just works really, really well. So that's a good thing. They do make a difference. If you have put some money in a good microphone, good video, that's great. The downside is they make too much of a difference. So let me be more explicit. I made a little map of what happens with the technical stack effect. Like if people have a bad microphone, well, you can get bad cracking sound every time they speak. I found myself feeling annoyed every time a given person was speaking. The person has nothing to do with it. It just had a cracking sound every time they speak. But for my brain, that was pain. And that was, oh, please finish this conversation. And I can't help it. I mean, logically, this person was responsible or nothing. They were a nice person, but my brain was saying like, oh, please stop talking all the time. Low internet speed. Once again, get to the cracking sound. A lot of people are switching off the video. What happens when you switch off the video? The empathy is gone. Like I tweeted about it today, but I just had the summary. Like every single time I finished the workshop, having bad feeling for a person, even if I try to facilitate and make sure blah blah blah. But every single time, person didn't put on the video, said something more or less disconnected, and then I felt like, oh, what an idiot, what a jerk. And that's not the way it happened in other workshops. I have a lot more time to understand different point of view, but Zoom is taking, video calls are taking so much energy out that when we get to the critical conversation, we don't have so much energy left. And then without the reserves of empathy, then, well, you just label people, oh, yeah, dumb. And also, no double screen. We're missing details. We're getting the continuous clarification. Oh, yeah, talking about the word these. Oh, what do you mean for these? I don't see what you are seeing. Extra conversation, blah, blah, blah. You can work with this. You can get better. Still is using a lot of energy. More thing, single conversation bandwidth. We know this. But the thing that I wanted to say is the technology is affecting the emotions. So this every single workshop that we run, I never ended the workshop in the tired by happy mode. I was mostly tired. I was never really, really happy. So a lot of this was gone. I was satisfied. We visualized something, we discovered something, but it was really, really draining a lot more. And I know it was not exactly an easy path, even in person, but the feeling was completely different at the end. And this was really maybe one of the biggest loss. And yes, well, the thing is, the emotional fatigue is changing. The Zoom fatigue is actually changing the perception of the emotion of the other people around us. And the other little note is actually related to this fact. I just highlighted these 3 items: bad microphone, low internet speed, and no double screen, because those things are making a lot of difference. And single conversation bandwidth is not avoidable. It's just because you are on Zoom. But you can buy a better microphone. You can go for a better internet connection, and you can have a double screen. But a lot of people have it. A lot of people don't. This is just a matter of money, and this is actually money worth investing. But one of the things that was really interesting to see as statistical phenomenon, I see a lot of consultants and freelancers putting money on this tech stack: better microphone, better seat, a standing desk, and so on, while employees are not having this. And I'm seeing this divide, and I know I'm not the only one. Just like consultants buy hardware, employees get what they're used to, and they join the workshop with this, smaller screen on a laptop. A few people forced to use Internet Explorer. Can you use Mirror Me Internet Explorer? Doesn't work. And So that's part of the ecosystem. And the other thing is Kahneman, System 1 and System 2 is still a good model also to describe Zoom fatigue. Zoom fatigue is a result of a continuously turning System 1 conversation that don't require extra energy into System 2, which basically deplete your brain energy because you're running compensation, because you're trying to understand if the people you're talking to is actually angry at you. One of the things that was really, really disturbing is if your camera is in the wrong way, it's just like, I'm not talking to you anymore. I'm just like, you see the side of my face. But this, in the real world, is something that I do when I want to ignore you. It's a message of, I don't want to talk, I'm angry at you. And then I'm talking continuously with people in Zoom meetings with the camera put in a different corner, and the unconscious message is, these people are angry at me. Oh, no, they are not. It's just a different camera. But no, they are not. It's a brain cycle which is depleting your energy. It's still happening. So it turns out that the most scarcest resource in every Zoom meeting, including online EventStorming, is your brain energy. And you just have to manage it the best way you could. So 3 hours is the maximum achievable, and it's probably already too much. There is no way to run any final sprint because we want to close. You will do stupid things if you do it during this. You have no energy for closing brilliantly. It's just like leading a bunch of dumb people to lunchtime. And so multiple sessions will be needed, and the magic of one big session to deliver the magic is gone. And the synchronous contribution is possible, but it really happens rarely, and still it needs in-person validation in the way. Okay, slap in my face doesn't sound like a great achievement. Still, there's good news. One good news is the fact that if you accept all of this, and remember, there is no alternative. Zoom fatigue happens in every meeting. Decision-making collaboratively, it's still a lot better if you do it with the visual support. So, and you're not comparing ourselves to the old times because everybody's under the pandemic. So, well, we gotta be dealing with this. Let's enjoy the unlimited modeling space. The fact that instead of having a wall that was the illusion of unlimited modeling space, we have a real unlimited modeling space, which is, one might be a mirror board. What do we do in this one? Well, we can still have the visible grammar like in the old days, maybe slightly different in this specific case. We can have a lot of visual clues and anchors so that in different places of the board, we could just recall, that was a teal quadrant. It might be zoomed into somewhere else. And we can have multiple modeling perspective. In this scenario, we actually jump back and forth from the EventStorming to the business model canvas. EventStorming gave us some ideas to check into the business model canvas. Business model canvas gave us a different narrative. We went back to the EventStorming, added more details, and then we have 2 models in sync, which is actually a pretty good thing. And every single model had its own explanation nearby. So, okay, I know what we are doing, and if I don't know, there's a place where I can look at. Okay, that was good. It felt actually pretty good in the way. We can embrace multiple perspectives on the same board. We can also make the evolution progress visible. So first exploration, another board for the second exploration. We drill down, and then we discover this, and feels good. Our current experiment, we are just thinking about not using wikis anymore. We just put everything on Miro. We add a lot of decoration content or login information, meaning like, well, we ended this workshop here, and we have this, then we move this, we discover that. So you can read the flow. We do a little bit of extra gardening for the next readers, like people should do on wikis too. And, well, it doesn't feel that bad. And we are actually using the same board between the team, the technical team, and the UX team, and this is visible to the business too. So we are making our progress and discussion visible. We are referring to the same tools altogether. Another thing which is part of the evolution is discover as you go, which is a different way to say, like, we are not able to finish workshops because lunchtime happens. And so what the classical state of the workshop is, well, it's in a temporary state. We discover something, we visualize it, it's not complete, and then it will be completed later on. It becomes even more important to have something to visualize this state, like you can go for asynchronous contribution, you can go for updates, but also you would like to have some meta information. If you look at this post section of the board, like, how happy are you for the result? Because if you join the same board later on, oh yes, you looks like you finished. No, we haven't finished. We just had lunchtime, so we need to capture the fact that this exploration is still inaccurate at that time, and we need to get back there. And one thing which is actually working really, really well is adding layers. So on top of validated narrative, well, the level of granularity you might achieve, you can have one more layer discussing many other things. Like, it takes nothing to add screen captures of current data. I had people putting graph from Excel talking about the demand needs of different flows in the way, visualizing pros and cons of given areas, value generated, value created. It just works really, really well. In general, the recipe for big picture event storming, that is the most honest that I can give you. I had the established recipe for the in-person recipe: invite the right people, hack the room, run a chaotic exploration, and force the timeline, see people and system, and then validate. The way we do it, we change a few things. We start using different colors instead of using orange. We use orange later on for validation as a progress of, yes, we discussed this, so this becomes orange. We started doing a lot more of frame sorting. That used to be the worst possible case in physical workshop, this chapter sorting. And well, we do it a lot, but more honestly, what we do is we do a lot of small time boxed experiments, because we need to see something in order to understand what is the right thing to do. So 5 minutes of exploration. Okay, now we see what we should do next. Let's separate this and this in frames. Okay, now we see that it becomes obvious to isolate pivotal events. Okay, now we see that we could do this. So we need different styles and a lot of bets, actually. Time boxed, 5 minutes. This is what we see. Okay, let's do this. And then, okay, let's get back to the exploration. Because doing the whole exploration at the beginning, it really takes too much time for sorting. And sorting in physical, it's actually rewarding. Sorting on Miro, it makes you feel horribly tricked, and doesn't really work. So let's sort as more assets, find the structure, and then fill the structure with more events, and then sort inside a little bit more articulated. More honestly, it's a sequence of bets. Every bet is going to tell you what is going to be the most likely next move. Then, after you have a validated narrative, well, you can play it the way you want. You can visualize many things. You can actually copy it and visualize different things in different places. It just takes nothing. It's a very versatile artifact in the meanwhile. But being honest, incomplete is the new default state. Finishing the end-to-end event storming within the 2 half days, 3 half days, we're getting close, but not really complete. Do we need to finish it? That was a good question, because did we do something really actionable? Did we accomplish the mission of finding a way to improve the system? Oh yeah, the answer is yes. Did we finish the exploration end to end? The answer is no. So maybe we just shouldn't finish. So the current state for us is applying these experiments. Did we redesign business lines? Absolutely yes. We are the living proof. We are still existing. Our business has been redesigned, getting completely remote, and rebuilding titles, catalog, consulting services, and everything that was needed one by one. And we envision every single line of business with EventStorming based discussion, and of course not only EventStorming, a few other discussion, but yeah, that was the place that made this envisioning easy. So yes, done. We also help customers. We design startups. We design new business processes. It just like it works. So yes, am I happier as it before the pandemic? Of course not. I would still go out and have a party with the beer on a swimming pool. But this is where we are, and yeah, I would say mission accomplished here. Lesson learned. It takes more time. Digital divide matters more than we want to admit, and that everybody wants to admit. We have option. Asynchronous is useful, but you still need to be heard. So you cannot have validation without having all the people in the same room. They need to listen their own voice. It's unavoidable and sometimes painful, but that's the only way to get commitment and onboarding. And but in general, we also spotted a massive lack of tools in collaborative decision making. So I think this is an area where we should really focus in the next years. And another few things, digital divide is shifting more weight on the facilitator. I was just used to let things go, and then, yes, just like being the observer facilitator. Well, not exactly an observer, but now I have to do a lot more. Why is that? Because I cannot rely a lot on other people being fluent with Miro. It just gets faster if somebody already skilled with Miro is just like doing the typing, doing the rearranging, all these things. Like the difference in proficiency from the pros to the normal people is really high. It's still great to have it collaborative, but it's actually killing a little bit of the democratic approach that we have. It also has some other consequences, and but yes, it's part of the game. I'm stopping here a second, looking if there is any question that I could answer right now, or should I move on? Enrico?
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Alberto. First of all, it was very insightful. I would say we did have one earlier on when you were talking about just having one conversation at the time. That's kind of killer in some ways. So Nico is suggesting about VR and voice chats. I don't know if you thought about it or you have any ideas you want to share.
No, it's just like companies are not paying for good cameras and good microphones for their employees. They are not paying for a VR headset for 20 people. So no, that is not happening, not in the cards. If it's happening for you, I'm happy, but it's not happening for the market in general. So yeah, bad news. I'm also personally not thinking about it, because I think I'm one of the person that will puke with a VR headset on. So I'm not longing for this experience. Maybe for 5 minutes gaming, but if for 1 day workshop, no.
We shall see indeed, yes. Maybe in the future, when budgets go, sorry. Okay, so I guess that is it.
Talk to your boss.
Yeah, exactly. I'll talk to my boss. If there are any questions, of course, feel free to still write them, and we'll carry on with reading them when the time comes. For now, I guess Alberto can continue with the presentation.
Right. What about process modeling, the second recipe? And one of the things that we discovered is it just happens. It just blends in the big picture. So that's the consequence of having a more hands-on facilitator. If the facilitator is being the scribe of many conversations happening, then it really feels like, okay, if we just use the events without the rest of the process modeling grammar, it feels like, oh, we are going to be wasting a lot more time repeating the exploration later on. So let's do it right at the first time. And since this is just a matter of visualization and people don't have to play with all the colors, they might have like, oh, you're using different colors. Yes, I'm using a different grammar. I just make it visible. And then we move on. It really takes 5 minutes of friction. And then we can get really fluent. But you need somebody that is actually really fluent in typing with Miro, so that the discussion is not losing that much speed due to the amount of precision. And so in a scenario like this, you might have, it started like a big picture, then we realize, okay, we need to focus on one area. If we want to tell the story at the validation level, well, maybe it's better to use the whole grammar, but still leaving the surroundings just scratched, like this is part that we haven't really checked. It's not beautiful, but yes, it does work. That's a grammar that we are using most of the time. And so we started using emojis. I'm 50 years old and I'm starting using emojis as part of the official grammar. This is kind of embarrassing, but it works. Instead of using the little stickies with emojis are just like working a lot better in this area. And this is the grammar that we are enforcing in the conversation. A grammar which is explicitly designed to enable a conversation, mostly about visualizing which are the current policies inside the organization. And so this is what happens. Facilitator has more responsibility. We introduced the process modeling grammar earlier. This happens already inside some big picture workshop as a standalone process for modeling processes or redesigning processes of a business line that needs to be, well, say, COVID compliant or whatever thing. Like this is actually just working well. Just like once you have a more precise commitment, once you people know that they are just not exploring, they're redesigning a process end to end because we need to, because that's a survival matter. Well, that really works. Also, it just the tooling provides a little bit more flexibility, split and merge, comparative modeling. We had comparative modeling of processes that were happening inside the same large organization, but on different national branches. And that was quite interesting because they were claiming to be different. Then at the end, well, they looked very similar, but well, they were not using the same word. Still, the concept was really similar. But it was interesting to see that we could not have any agreement during the modeling session because of many reasons. But then after visualizing it, okay, now we see it, they actually agree, they just don't know it. Like, but starting from agreeing on the language was a losing battle. Starting from getting into the visualization first and then reaching an agreement based on the visualization was a lot easier. And it just, I feel the value of having a model process as a standalone artifact. Just this is what we are right now. Even if it's not complete, this is our current understanding of the flow, and we are just enriching it every time we have any discussion of new things. So these are the good news. On the process modeling works really, really well to design new businesses, starting from scratch, startups, and so on, together with business model canvas, Wordle maps, and all the possible other tools. They are giving different perspective. If your model is sound on many different perspectives, that's great. If you just can see only one perspective at the time, then the connection is only in your head. If the connection is visible and obvious to other people, that is actually pretty good things. Redesigning old businesses, that's great too, especially if you can have a snapshot of old business, new business, then you can see exactly what needs to change. And the color is not by chance, is usually the policies which need to be different. Maybe some tooling, maybe some other things, like the moment we move remotely, we just killed all the logistic part and we don't have to rent rooms and all this other part. So yeah, it went away. But then we have a lot of extra preparation on Zoom, Slack, and other channels. And that was great. What about software design instead? And this is where the metaphor of collaborative game is even more powerful. Well, it starts in process modeling, but it's really working a lot in this year. So the goal here is we have specialists with different background cooperate towards a common goal. That's a design problem. It's not a discovery. Discovery, we just need to understand what's going on here. To design something, we need to have an agreement within people with usually pretty strong opinions. And the metaphor that I'm using as a metaphor and as a tool is cooperative games. Got the idea originally from Alistair Cockburn in this book, but I turn it into rules of the game. We have a smaller set of rules for process modeling. For software design, this is a complete set of rules. So every part should be completed, core grammar should be respected, stakeholders should be reasonably happy, hotspots should be addressed, components should be reasonably consistent, so complementary state, machine, symmetric actions. So it has to look sound, feel sound. Actually, it has to sound because you want to talk about it. And also boundaries should be visible. And yes, that was the game. This is what it looked like in the physical world. And now it's not that different, but there's a few other things that we can do. Like actually we're using the boundaries in a different way from here. This is a little bit more updated version, and you can see a lot of extra sophisticated. This is a specific grammar for a project that is strictly on CQRS event sourcing. So we had a little bit of changes to the grammar. Oh, that's not orthodox. Well, I can do whatever I want. It's my project. And so we also have a different artifact to visualize the test on some areas. And well, that's what we needed to support the discussion between people in our team. And yes, also another thing that I really like of using digital tools is you can play with the size. So we use a smaller size for local events and larger size for the boundary events. Might be commands that you're receiving from the outside, might be a view which is accessible from another bounded concept, might be an event that we will publish to the world outside. They just work. This is a possibility that could not happen in the physical world, but of course you need the people to stick with the size of mirror cards. And it just doesn't happen. Every time people is putting a sticky note on a board, another person is putting a larger sticky note, and the third person is putting a larger sticky note. So you've been there. And so it's just like we evolved the grammar from the old days, and this is a more recent version of the grammar. Once again, we can use frames for visualizing bounded context. And we can still use emoji to visualize the values, and that's great. And the thing which is really relevant for this approach is I think a lot of people are really obsessed with what is the software that we can design out of it, and where you still have a lot of options for the software. What I'm doing most of the time is just like using this grammar as enabling constraint. Like, can you tell a story with these building blocks? If you can, your software is going to be a lot easier to understand. But I'm not forcing explicitly a one-to-one mapping between the artifact and the software. You still can have choices in many places. I'm just shaping the conversation. It's just like it's a conversation facilitation tool, making the software design more obvious. I think that's a key thing that needs to be in there. It's not a one-to-one software design tool. It's not a blueprint for the software. It's about making the conversation possible and making the translation obvious. Another thing, I had to write it somewhere. I don't know if that's the right space for this slide. We were already doing this discussion on platform like Miro way before the pandemic happened. It was a way to have an informed discussion between 2-3 software people around the software that we were discussing. It still was not a storming, but should we take a train every time we discuss about architecture? No, for a 1-hour discussion about what to do next, what is the new aggregate, we just did it online way before the time. It was not the storming. We didn't have so much discovery at that time, just a local discussion. That's all great, but that's a question I get every single time. How do I get from these to the software? Because, conversation facilitation tool. everybody's happy. Oh, that's a great conversation. I still need to deliver software. Now the conversation. So I can be a little bit more explicit, but maybe you will be disappointed. Well, let's see. So how do I get from this to software? My recipe is, one of the third things that you can do is, actually, I never thought that emojis could be so useful. The moment you start putting emojis on key events or read models in the flow, you're just showing what is making stakeholders happy, which is pretty close to the definition of a user story. So user story becomes the sequence of things that happen from one triggering command or event to the place where you find a good emoji or somebody you make happy. You make somebody happy, you deliver some value. That can be a user story. Can you deliver it in one iteration? Well, that's good. It's very easy to spot them. We actually use a little bit of mirror magic in the flow, just using different cards and then putting the cards in a Kanban board. It takes really, really nothing. But the thing is, if you visualize the happy stakeholders with the emoji, then you have a one-on-one relationship between the emojis and the possible user story. That's very, very neat. I can have an easy transition to BDD style testing. And so given events, that's my set of precondition. When a command, that's my trigger, then I'm expecting events and read models. Why both? Because events are making the system in a happy state, and read models are making these happy states visible for the users. Users are not happy looking at the logs. Well, some developers are, but users are happy if they see the outcome of their actions somewhere. And this might be an example of a given when, then, and type of structure that we can have. So given a public training class has been scheduled, when I register an attendee to the training class, I expect an event, the attendee, random attendee, should be registered to the training class, and this will be catching the event on the event bus, and the attendee should be visible in a training class dashboard. Okay, that's checking information on a read model. What about wireframes? Well, the story about wireframes, they were part of the regional grammar really long ago, and but it was always something optional, and the key thing was actually speed. So if you had the luxury of having somebody really quick with wireframes, just have them jump on board. We had a fantastic session where we could have wireframing on the fly. It was really, really clear. Prototyping, visualization, that was great, but you gotta be quick. Wireframes could also go really, really wrong if you have an UX team which is coming like, oh, we already designed all these steps. Well, we might be relearning now that we are discussing the things with all these other people around. And so it might just get in the way. So I would say fluidity, speed of execution is the way here. It's just like, you gotta be quick. Online, it's even more important. So sometimes we find ourselves like postponing the wireframing part a little because it's a little bit harder to sketch wireframes on the fly. But even if some people can be really, really good. So it's speed. I don't want it to slow down because we are looking at the wireframes. If you can be really, really quick, okay, why not? It's just a matter of speed of execution, just make them visible. Final part of the recipe, early prototyping. That's one thing that was really, really surprising, especially in large companies, because we explore the flow quite deeply. And then I felt like I just would like to write some code now. And so when I asked, what would you like to do next? And they said, like, I think we need to have a lot more meetings. And I was, why running more meetings? I need to see if what we discovered is actually clicking. Only code can give me the feeling of this is actually right. And I have this impatience of, I see the flow, I'm going to prototype. Sometimes I do it also in the evening when nobody else is watching, because I would like to see the beautiful code solving the problem that just exploded in the morning. But I also need to try it at the code level to realize that, oh, there's some corner cases that we didn't explore during the day. And And so I accept the fact that our first implementation could have holes and gaps. And I totally accept it. That's life. That's not only life. That's exactly the model exploration whirlpool, pure DDD style. Just like you try something, you model, you discuss, and then you code it, and you discover, oh, I forgot this. You get back to the model. If you can accept that you're actually developing code in a really iterative way, this is part of the game, and I totally accept it. And this works for me. That's the way I like working, but me is not a good sample of the human race, because I am a DDD practitioner with 35 years of coding experience running my own company. So the business is agreeing with me every single time. And I have the role of the business owner, of the product owner, of the lead architect, and of users of the software we are writing. Can I be a good sample? Of course not. So the question is, what works for you? What is the recipe for your team instead? And a few questions you might ask yourself, like, which are not implicit, they are part of the question, like, did the team join the modeling session? And a lot of people, oh, how do we do EventStorming? What is the documentation you write at the end? I don't write any documentation. EventStorming is the documentation, for me, at least. And then, oh, yes, but we haven't hired our team yet. So why did you run the EventStorming? It's a matter of optimizing the understanding of a problem. But if you have a few people understanding the problem and other separate people on the other side of the planet implementing the solution, there's clearly a misunderstanding, because I'm trying to optimize for the overall learning of the entire team. So I would like to have a conversation between all the people, at the beginning. Intermediate documentation, why do you need it? I'm not saying give up intermediate documentation. I'm saying challenge it. Why do you need it? Some people really need the intermediate documentation. Some people really need some artifacts in between because it's needed before making the next move. Other people don't need it. I'm totally fine not having sophisticated wireframes, even if I can spend a lot of time rearranging things in the UI. I accept it, part of the game. In other realities, it might not be acceptable. But the question is, why do you need it? What is the benefit that a given piece of documentation is giving to you? Even more, intermediate documentation is different from after-the-fact documentation. You might have a compliance issue. You might be in a regulated industry. Totally acceptable. I'm not saying start a revolution. I'm saying challenge every single artifact, including EventStorming. If EventStorming is not working for you, well, don't use it. How many companies are involved? It's only for you, of different teams involved. How much time between exploration and implementation? I was burned out by this one. We ran an exploration workshop in a company. We took pictures, we discovered a lot of things. And then it took the company, well, for one reason or the other one, and even for us, we actually started a project a few months later that we wanted, and then a lot of memory was wiped away. We had the exploration, we had some picture. People, even if they remember the flow, actually remember a lot of things, the confidence that we could remember this was actually gone, and the confidence, well, became extra days in the flow. So the time between the exploration and implementation is crucial. I like not to have time between them. If you have more time, you need to fix the memory somewhere. And how good is your team? How flexible? How specialized? Do we have front-end developers, or do we have full-stack developers? How many people? How smart they are? How quick they are? Sometimes you need to help them. Sometimes they don't need help. So in general, whenever I get asked this question, that's my standing point. I know this, I know EventStorming, I know domain-driven design. I have no idea about the other part of the puzzle, like what is your domain? Which are the skills of the people working it? Who are the people working with this? How big is your project size, the process, and so on? So the question, how do you turn this from the model to the software? Well, not to mention the architecture that you can have. Some people are going full scale, even sourcing. Other people are more traditional architecture. EventStorming still works in understanding the flow, but the mapping, of course, doesn't get one-to-one. So the real thing that I wanted to put on the table is, don't ask me for this answer, because you have to ask your team. Your team response is the answer. Given what you understood here, what else do you need? Or what do you really need is actually the most important thing. What else do you need? How many things do you have to put in place before starting to prototype something? Or maybe the misconception is between coding and prototyping that you have to solve. There's so many variables in here, but this question, what do you really need, is a challenge. I sometimes reframe it in a way which is, if I told you, you have to start coding tomorrow morning after this session, what else do you need? I need to put terror in the eyes of the people having the workshop to understand what is the missing bit. Because for me, after a session, everything is visible. But that's me. I need to understand what is missing for the people in the team, in the organization, and then challenge the answer. Because some organizations are just happy passing month and month from the exploration to the implementation. So actually, this question repeated is the challenge, is the most important thing. Every tool should prove itself useful, directly or indirectly. If they're not, well, you can try at least one iteration without them. Let's see the way it goes. And try to see what you can do once you are in a remote setting. Well, there might be many different opportunities. Or what I mean with exploit remote opportunities, I mean nobody is actually looking at you. So you can try and visualize and measure what is working, what is not. Summary. It's about time. I'm actually a few minutes late. Keep experimenting. Of this whole journey, the thing that I enjoyed most is the fact that while we are still experimenting, something that looks consolidated and stable, well, we have been shaken and we have to rethink a lot of steps. Some of them we had good ideas. Well, actually, we had a few good ideas in almost every place, but yeah, the human touch is not replaceable. Keep experimenting. Not a single thing is guaranteed to work. Not a single step in the flow is guaranteed to work. If you want a guaranteed recipe, you should do some other job. If you are in software development, not a single thing is guaranteed to work. But dedication, if you care about what you're doing, if you want to improve things, you can make things work. And it doesn't have to work perfectly. It does have to work better than the alternatives. And this is achievable. Second thing, be honest. Once again, not a single thing is guaranteed to work. Don't pretend that it is guaranteed. So I just made it clear in every single workshop, we are running a 5-minute experiment. Maybe it's wrong, but we need to say this. I'm just trashing possibly 5 minutes. That is being honest. I'm not wasting people's time if I am honest in saying, like, we need to see things to rearrange them later. And we need data to make the next choices. It's a bet. It's not guaranteed to work, but it just helps being honest along the way. Yeah, it's not guaranteed to work. Nothing else is. So, well, let's do it. One last thing. This is actually a picture of my flip chart nearby. And it was just a couple of days ago, reading one more article from a neuroscientist, I think it was Tokyo University, just once again with data showing that just using pen and paper is activating a lot more brain cells than being typing or using an iPad and an iPencil. It is just different. Your brains work different if you make drawing, if you do mind maps, if you do whatever is needed. It just works better this way. Remote doesn't mean forced to be digital. You can still think on paper. You can do prototyping. You can do your sketching. It's still part of doing a good job as a brain worker. I think that was the most important part of the message. So that's my thank you. And that's my, end of show now. And yes, getting real time for the Q&A.
So I will do a clapping around because that how to say, is the substitute of what would happen in a real stage. Thank you, Alberto, for this insightful talk. And I guess now it's time for the questions. So let me go back to when these started. So of course, these were collected during the talk. So I'll try to summarize the context if I can. Otherwise, we'll do it together. Okay. So a very good point that Stephen mentioned is when you were just, I think it was just after the break, and you started to talk about how it's difficult to, that people maybe don't have a double screen or this or that. Are you seeing the screen I see? Yes, Alberto?
Yes. Now I see.
So it's what more can be done to counter the digital divide. Seems like the inherent lack of empathy online is become a real blocker. So I think this is quite key.
Yep. It depends on your role. Like if you can, you just buy different tools. This is horrible to say, but because it's adding a little bit more social divide, and that's one of the things that was more disturbing for me. But actually, if that is a status quo, we just need to put more money on the stack with better camera, better connections, and so on. If you are a freelancer, usually a lot of people already done it. In corporation, well, it just depends on your boss. But it's part of it. The most annoying thing is a lot of people don't see the connection, the direct connection between the two things, and then you have people that will be. I mean, I remember I had a call, and the microphone was really, really terrible, and every single time the people were speaking, I was, and my face was actually looking angry. I started apologizing, and it's just like, your microphone is terrible. Sorry for my face, because my face is displaying hate and anger every single time you talk. It's not about you, it's about your microphone. So I would say the easy thing is just being aware of this, because that is a problem that is underestimated. If you are in the position of making a choice for your company, give better microphones to everybody, have a better broadband connection from home for everybody. Double screen is great. Standing desk is even better. The single best improvement was the standing desk, which happens also to be one of the cheapest. So why not? But awareness is the starting point. And if there is no awareness about it, there is no budget. And without budget is just like up to you. I mean, you can buy it as your personal expense if you are an employee. Then let's say you will be a little bit less loyal to your company. Once you make this step, then you feel like, okay, maybe let's take the other one too. Yeah.
Cool.
I hope it answers. It's not a great answer, but accepting the limits and managing this energy in that we could have in talks and online conversation is the way. And if you can't, then stronger time boxing. Actually, I'm pointing my finger to Enrico, because Enrico was clearly part of one of the initial experiments. We tried to run a few very long workshops last summer to re-envision the company, and basically the message was, please not anymore. These workshops are too long, okay, so we stopped trying to run long workshops. At the same time, decision-making process was getting slower and slower, because we could not force into the escape room mode. Like we are inside this room with a lot of stickies on the wall. We are taking a decision and then have a beer. This is not happening. And so decisions are taking a little bit slower. We know about it.
The struggle is real. So let's go with the next one. So we have one from Katarina. Thanks for this. It's kind of linking back to the same communication, new part that we have to manage. So how do you embrace and encourage asynchronous contribution if assembling all the key people at the same time is impossible? Are you also facilitating asynchronous workshops?
We tried something with interesting results. So one of the we are actually running an experiment with Marijn Huizenveld, which is we are playing EventStorming like people play chess. Something like sending, I made this move, now your turn, and something like this. It takes a long time, but it feels like a chess game. And sometimes we just make other experiment with asynchronous contribution. One thing that we have seen, it can happen, but it's not guaranteed to happen with the same contribution from everybody. So we had a lot of actually, that's one thing that kind of worked in the summer workshop. We have a progress bar where we actually moved our face, how happy, how much are you done with this portion of the board. And I think that was one of the things that worked well. So Alberto is just at the beginning of the validation of this area. Enrico completed this, and the other one we were in a different place. One thing that we discovered exactly doing these experiments was no matter how much you do asynchronously, people need the discussion. So the final validation needs to happen with everybody around, and people needs to talk. If you don't talk, you have no guarantee that the other people heard you. And then you feel like, I have done my contribution. Have you actually watched it? Is it relevant for you? So you need this moment at the end. So you can start sitting synchronously. You can have something like a week off, organized asynchronous contribution, but you still need to spend a lot of time validating it at the end. And this has to be synchronous. That's a current state. I don't know if if anybody finds a better thing, I'm totally happy. But we could design things for asynchronous contribution. We can improve the readability. Still, the final state needs to be synchronous.
Cool. Next one is from Jordi. I see a similarity between EventStorming and Service Blueprint. Maybe not in terms of visualization, but content. Any thoughts on this? This is a bit more.
There's similarities with Service Blueprint. The similarities with basically everything that has a narrative from the beginning to the end and from left to right. What is the thought is many times it's just a matter of grammar. So if you have a grammar which is enabling different contribution, blend the grammar. Just like it doesn't make that much sense to have different people discussing about the same problem with different languages, and then doing the two things, the comparison and the relationship between the two. Let's find one skeleton, and you could have different layers of different conversation. It's just the same thing at different level of depth from different professionals. We are making experiments by putting all the different professionals on the same mirror board and basically making a tools clash. One of them will survive, one of them will die. Sometimes we just have two tools in parallel. Other times, why don't we make one? And or we can start from one and add, oh yeah, you're forgetting these details. Well, just find a notation for this, so we can make them happen on the same one. But it's just if people already started, it gets more expensive to merge. And usually it's better to have all the same people starting with one big model and then eventually zoom in, get together. One more thing, it really takes a lot of transparency. So we're running experiment, sharing all the documentation between UX team and technical team, but we are long-term partners with this service design UX company. We like them, they like us. We are on the same Slack channel. We organize events together. There's a lot of respect and transparency. And if this is missing, you will have tool duplication. You will have a lot of conversation that happen in one room and conversation that will need to be repeated in another one. And I would say this is really inefficient. If you play with the language, if your language is not strict, then you can have multiple conversation on the same tools.
Okay, there's still a few, so I'll try and read all of them. So we have one by Andreas, which basically is the combination of an observation also Christoph had. You read it, yes?
Yes, yeah.
There you go. Off to you.
No, I got the question, and I would like to say hi to Andreas. I laugh because there is one things that changed visibly because bounded context that used to be. So I have two visualization. They used to be bubbles, but they are not ellipses. They should look like hand drawn and so on. And this is hard to achieve in Miro. So it turns out I use a lot of frames to visualize bounded context while running the EventStorming exploration. And at the beginning, they might be candidate, they might look like departments, and later they get split into different, more purpose-oriented areas. And so that's one of the things. They just start to surface a little bit earlier, and they are not the good ones. The good ones will be defined later on, but the mistake is never in we have to move them, is always in we have to split them a little more, because this area is actually made of two different areas, and then we can cut. So no big mistakes, just a need for refinement. We just, when it comes to context mapping instead, we just had a little grammar that we use for exercise and visualization. So to look for the political layers between relationship, like what is an anti-corruption layer, what is a customer supplier, what is a partnership. We have different icons, well, sometimes emojis, sometimes arrows, but nothing is really official. But in this case, we use ellipses, bubbles, and so on. We don't use the squares. It just feels weird in this area, but still powerful.
I was on mute, which is another.
Yes, one little thing that changed is you don't have people as proxies. So you don't have them physically as proxies, like in a physical EventStorming. You remember some person were here, other person were only after this line, because they were touching the things that were important for them. This touching is completely gone, but you can remember that the person talking about this area was this person. And one thing that that you could play with is you can have avatars or pictures of people in the workshop. You can ask them to put the picture at the beginning, and maybe later on you might want to put these little business cards. The person responsible for this area is this one. This is a person responsible for this. This is the person involved in this one. So you can add a little bit layer, adding the people on top of the flow. And this might help. But in practice, we discover the bounded context before, and later we would like to visualize this connection.
Cool. Next is from Giovanni. By the way, I want to say special hello and thanks for being here to all past participants. It was good to see you in real life, as they said, but it's also good to keep having you coming at our events like this one. So Giovanni is asking basically how long do the time boxes have to be in the big pictures, also considering the energy limit? So
I have basically two time boxes. Time boxes for experiments are usually no more than 5 minutes. Sometimes it's even smaller, maybe 3, and so on. Another thing that we do a lot is we also do time boxes for making improvement on a board. So just like, and these time boxes in the design phase could be from 3 to 5 minutes, while the time box for a session, I usually ask the participant to set this, but around one hour of uninterrupted work, and then people really need to take a break. Also changes a lot for me because I might be working with Europe, I might be working in the afternoon for United States, and so I don't know which time of the day they are in. So I just feel like please set your brakes. It's your energy, not mine. Like I know what happens if I am tired. I get obsessed with the problem, so I don't stop, and I even talk more. I'm not a good indicator of feeling tired. I actually look more active when I'm tired. So just like I ask them, set your time, because I feel like I will try to deliver, but maybe I'm doing it over your dead bodies, and so that's not the way.
Okay, so getting to the end, we have Michal's question on, after chaotic exploration, how do you keep engagement of the participants high? This also connects to the next question about on how to have people to turn their cameras on, but we'll get there in a second. So this first.
Well, the chaotic exploration really takes a few minutes. So it's really 5 minutes of exploration, then sorting, and then one of the things that we do is just like we try aggressively not to get agreements between the participants, but instead, when I make a move, do it. Okay, I can do my move, do it. Just like we could have individual time boxes for making an improvement in the system. Usually it's a good one. I mean, not everything is perfect. I had a few times where the move that was proposed was, oh shit, but we could still revert it. But sorting the whole time frame without having an agreement, it becomes a little game. And then the engagement is actually working well. It might feel like weird, like why didn't you start from that immediately? And sometimes we just precede the board with some structure, and we change the structure later on. But in general, every moment is short. Chaotic exploration is 5 minutes. Then, sorting it just takes, let's see what we can do. And then I might use the timer aggressively. I remember one workshop that was going in a weird way. I just said, look, at 12 o'clock, I'm going to delete every single sticky note which is not inside the named box. And suddenly, for 12 o'clock, every single sticky note was inside the box with a name. Just like you're the facilitator, sometimes you can be a short-term dictator, and then, now we can have our break, and then go on. It's just the most time and energy-consuming thing is people trying to reach an agreement about something they don't understand yet. Get rid of this. Make little moves. Get in the flow, and then it's you will have a better engagement. If you cannot have high engagement for a longer time anyway.
Talking about engagement, we have next one by Pavel. How do you inspire people to turn on cameras? Challenge. How to deal with that?
That's a limit. I can invite this at the beginning, but one more thing is, I don't know if they have a double screen or not. So I have a double screen. I'm looking, I have a big screen in front of my face. I am almost standing, actually it was partially resting, but I'm seeing the board here, and then on the smaller screen here, I usually try to see the faces. It's actually using a little bit more of my energy with the mirror, Zoom, sharing the mirror screen, and changing this. It takes a lot of extra brain cycles. I mean, I don't like Zoom when it moves the information in different screens. But I'm looking at people's faces, and that's part of it. But you just can say it at the beginning, like, I don't know what you're doing on a normal day, but today your face, your mood is important. So even if you're looking most of the time at the board, you should have your camera on. One interesting thing is I was worried about the lack of body language, and at the same time I was finding myself in some other meetings where actually I couldn't control mine. So there was a presentation that was so, let's say, full of disappointment that I couldn't. Oh shit! And the type of face you don't do in a normal meeting, but online, I had no feeling anybody was watching at me, even if logically I knew that I had the camera on. But I saw this and I was, oh shit! I mean, in a meeting room you don't do this, but online you do this, and I realized people are actually using a lot more of facial expression during a meeting that they do in a normal one. That was pretty interesting, and I discovered it in an interesting way. But the only way you can do for inspire people, just like please, let's try to keep the camera on as long as possible. Just ask at the beginning. That's special. That's only for today. I also ask people to keep the microphone on, especially in given moment of the workshop, because I want to capture also the intention of speaking. The little I don't want to put myself activate the microphone before speaking. That's too much of an extra step. So if we accept a little bit of the background noise, that's actually more honest. And I would like to have the little hint of disappointment. It's actually useful. But there's a limit. Like I cannot get into people's houses, and I cannot force them to do something. It's individual, making their own choices. I can only warn them about what might be the consequences. It might be better, but it's just asking for a favor, and we cannot do more than this.
Cool. So we have the last two questions. So Trafolio, someday we will return to office, and it's looking like a partial capacity for my office for some time. What tips do you have for hybrid in-person remote?
So yeah, I was actually expecting this type of question at the end about what happens to normality, and I actually have no tips for a hybrid in person, because we only have done full remote this for this year. So, but one of the thing is, as happened for everything in remote working, well, the hybrid doesn't really work well. So I think we would get back to what we were used to do. I'm talking about Avanscoperta now, and we were already remote before the pandemic in many things. We were already working from not exactly home, from wherever we wanted. It might be home, it might be co-working, and it was just optimized. But we have a few days where we met together in the same office, which is this messy place you can see over here, where every single wall is writable. So we were optimized for doing your ordinary work whenever you want and wherever you want. But for strategic decision, our headquarters was optimized for collaborative exploration, visualization. All the walls are writable and all this stuff. And I get that might be the hybrid at the end. If you need to have a very good reason to be in the same room. We didn't have many dysfunctional meetings. We just had a few very big meetings with a lot of speakers, a lot of discussion, and also a good lunch and a good dinner at the end. That's what we were looking for. And I guess that's going to be very similar to the end state for us. We still be working from home or from whenever we want most of the time, but collaborative decision making is still working a lot better if we are in presence. We can spot emotion. We can put a hand on the shoulder. We can correct a sentence that we shouldn't have said, but it happened, and that is a lot harder to solve online. So, but this is for massive discovery workshop. For the ordinary incremental thing, this might still be working online. So more practically, if I have to redesign one big thing, I will still go physical. But then I will try to turn it digital as soon as possible, because that's going to be the maintenance work, the little evolution in the following days. This is for the big picture. This is probably for process modeling too, because the dynamics of solving a problem together, touching, moving, they are still better. But that's for the massive discovery. Maintenance mode, well, let's be online, unless it's gonna be co-located again and so on. But I don't know exactly what is gonna be the future in the next year. But I would say exploration in the same place. Discovery, evolution remotely is going to be probably the normal.
Excellent, Alberto. Thanks. We close with Rick's question on tips to foster better parallel and interactive collaborative modeling in the breakout rooms. We were asked about it before as well. Someone said, have you tried breakout room? I think it was Pavel. Have you tried them? Yes, we use them a lot. So
we use them a lot. We use them a lot in trainings,
yes.
But we could use them in parallel design. I mean, it might be a good idea if you have to split your team because of diverging opinions. So instead of agreeing, my solution is better than yours, guys, split. Team red on the top, team blue on the bottom. Visualize your flow. Let's get back here in a couple of hours. That's absolutely something that you can do. But in terms of maximizing the exploration, it doesn't really work because of what it's just like having breakout rooms. It's just like having a synchronous contribution. You will still need the validation when everybody else is in the room. So it might speed up local exploration. You can play with this, but still, to make sure that the whole thing is working, you need to be in the same room. I'm using the words carefully. Like it's about being sure that what we've done is okay. If it's just okay between your three friends, it's not okay for the company. That's and so you might think like it will speed up things. I didn't have this feeling. It might help you in process modeling. It might help in having different alternatives. It might help every time you're forced into reaching an agreement too early. But it will still put it together, and this will have to happen synchronously.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Alberto. Thanks all of you for being with us. It's been a pleasure. I'm really happy we did this today. I guess it's dinner time. I see you're a bit tired, but that's normal. It's here. So follow us. There's going to be more news. I didn't even mention there's going to be a workshop both at the end of April and mid-May, because probably you already know it, and there's been a line going all along all the time here. Leave us your feedback if you wish. I've seen that some of you already have done that. Thanks for that. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your questions. And I hope you enjoyed it. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.